Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku Has Aizawa's Quirk but much more powerful movie 1. Before we start, please go support 0302 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Deku is a male. Izuku has a power that will allow him to do many things and be very recognized. Izuku will have a quirk since he was little, which will be similar to Aizawa's, only more powerful since his does not remove the quirk when he looks at a target, he removes them in a radius. Izuku will know several martial arts, he will not be shy, and after the death of his mother he will no longer be the same as he was before. The beginning. It all started years ago, where a child who was born from that moment on, more and more people with these peculiarities were born, making themselves known as Quirk. After a few years passed, these peculiarities began to become normal, making people who did not have Quirk the abnormal in this world. In the world population, more than 70% of the population has a quirk. These powers also gave rise to the heroes, the vigilantes, and the villains. First there were only the vigilantes and the villains. The villains were people who took advantage of their power to get what they wanted, while the vigilantes were people who wanted to do good with their power. The governments, seeing that, decided to create the profession of hero, which would have a special license with which they were allowed to use their quirk and thus defend those who could not defend themselves. From the moment that profession was created, the vigilantes began to be considered as the bad guys, making that in these times the vigilantes by the heroes are seen as villains, since they did not act by means of rules. They had no restrictions that made the vigilantes now were very few, and those who remained always act from the shadows. But these powers, although they did good things in society, also created many bad things. Now we live in a society where the hierarchy of the past no longer exists. Everyone lives in a similar way. In this society now more than ever, people crave the power to rule over others. Those who do not have power are considered useless, and those who have amazing power are considered the elite. That has made many people arrogant. And now finding a true hero who does not seek fame or money is more difficult. At this moment we are in a city in Japan where we can see how a 4-year-old green-haired boy and his mother were in the hospital to find out what power the green-haired boy had. After some time had passed, a doctor entered the room where these two people were and asked them to come into his office so they could talk about the power of the child. Doctor: Well, Mrs. Midoriya, with the tests we did on Izuku, we were able to know that he does have a peculiarity. The problem is that we don't know what it is, so when you discover it, please come so we can put your power in your record. Izuku, upon hearing that he did have a gift, smiled and began to move, quite excited about it. After hearing the doctor say that they didn't know what his gift was, he became a little discouraged, but still didn't get sad since at least he had a gift. After listening to the doctor, his mother thanked him, and together with Izuku they said goodbye to the doctor so they could go home. When they got home, Izuku went to his room where he had a computer, which he turned on and started watching a video where the peace symbol All Might appeared, saving people after a fire collapsed a building. After a while his mother called her son to go eat, to which Izuku with a smile full of happiness went down to eat. Izuku's life was always happy even though his father was not with them, since according to his mother he was at work outside the country. He was always happy. His father always sent money to his mother so that she would not have to work and could take care of her son, and although Izuku for a time wished that his father was with them, after a while he understood why he was not with them. At school Izuku had several friends, but his best friend was a boy named Katsuki Bakugo, whom he called Kaken, who had already awakened his gift a long time ago, which was to make explosions, and he and Izuku were excited not only because of their friend's power but also because they wanted to know what power Izuku would have. Although Izuku's friend was arrogant, so he always said that it doesn't matter what power Izuku's power was, it would be less cool and powerful than his. The next day after Izuku visited the doctor, he was at school with his best friend who had just asked him what his quirk was, to which Izuku replied that yes, he had one, but they didn't know what it was. That Bakugo thought it was just a lie and that in reality Izuku didn't have a quirk, and from that moment on Izuku's best friend started to bother him because he believed that Izuku didn't have a quirk. Bakugo began to bother Izuku by hitting him, using his power on him, and even verbally assaulting him. Izuku didn't care about that. For Kaken, he would continue to be his friend. After Izuku told Bakugo about not knowing what his quirk was, he began to tell everyone, only that he didn't say that Izuku didn't know what his quirk was. He said that Izuku didn't have a quirk. That made him start to receive harassment from his schoolmates. At that Izuku became somewhat depressed, but still he continued on. Time skipped 2 years. After 2 years he had passed, Izuku's life became complicated at school. His friend kept bothering him. His classmates did the same. The teachers didn't take him seriously for the simple fact that they thought he didn't have a quirk. But unlike the school outside of it, he was fine. He had already activated his quirk a year ago. At the moment he activated his quirk, he realized what it was, since he was going to receive one of Bakugo's explosions, but just his quirk activated at that moment, like this, disappearing Bakugo's power for a moment. Even so, he revived an explosion, since without knowing how to control his quirk, he deactivated his gift, causing his friend's power to come back and attack him again. He only thought that he had a problem with his power, but not Izuku knew that he had done that, and before that he had run to tell his mother about his power. After he told his mother, and she got excited, he began to train his power to be able to know how to activate it. He discovered that his power worked in two ways. One of those ways affected an area and the other only affected a single target. When he discovered what his quirk did, he became interested in another hero apart from All Might who had a power similar to his, which was Eraserhead, who like him also had the power to remove the quirk of others, but from what he investigated, his was different, since his could affect an area, something that Eraserhead could not do. What they had in common was that, just like Eraserhead, he had to look at his target who he wanted to take away their quirk, because otherwise he could not concentrate only on that person. But something good about his power was that it did not give any sign that it was being activated, which made his power could be more stealthy, since Eraserhead showed his red eyes, something that was intimidating but made you realize when he used his quirk. Izuku investigated about him, since as a hero who had a gift similar to his, he wanted to learn from him. He discovered that Eraserhead always acted at night, and since his quirk was not a combat quirk, he learned how to fight to be able to help people. At that, Izuku became interested and began to train, since although he wanted to be like All Might, he knew that he would be more like Eraserhead because of his power. After he trained both his body and his quirk, he already knew how to control his power more. He had realized that his power was quite powerful, since he could keep it active for as long as he wanted. The only bad thing that happened was that when he increased the radius of his power, it began to pull him out, but he did it anyway so that his radius would become larger and larger, and thus he could catch more people if necessary with his quirk. That was the only bad thing he saw about his quirk. The other was that it was not an attack quirk, but he still made up for it with the usefulness of the quirk. He had also trained his body. He did not know how to fight professionally, but he was in good physical condition for his age, since he always exercised. On this specific day, Izuku was turning 6 years old, and he and his mother were at the mall because his mother took Izuku to eat at a restaurant that sold his favorite food. After they left this, they were walking through the mall looking at what was there, but at one point when they were both looking at a store in which there was quite formal clothing, a wall of the mall exploded, causing a lot of rubble to fly out, which almost fell into Izuku and his mother's hole. But before the rubble could crush Izuku, his mother pushed him, which made her stay under the rubble. When he realized, he ran to where his mother was before the place was full of rubble. After he saw that he looked like a hole in the rubble, began to come out blood, something that made him start to cry. After he started crying desperately, he tried to remove the rubble in case his mother was still okay. But in the middle of his attempt, he looked towards the direction where a loud bang was heard. In that place you could see how a villain who was quite large had a woman in his hands, pointing at him with his hand on the neck. After Izuku looked at him, he saw how some heroes entered through the hole that the villain had made in the wall. Izuku called a hero to help him remove the rubble in case his mother was okay, but the hero only looked at him for a moment and looked back at the villain. At that moment, Izuku lost his trust in the heroes, but he still wanted the villain to be judged for what he did, so he waited for a moment in which one of the heroes used his power, which threw air which was quite concentrated, which would greatly damage a normal person. The villain, seeing that, covered himself with his ability, which apparently made him harden. At the exact moment Izuku activated his gift, making the villain's quirk deactivated, thus causing the hero's attack to hit him directly, causing a lot of damage that made him release the woman he had hostage, who fled as quickly as possible. So it was seen the hero's attack was so powerful that it made a large cut on a large part of one of the villain's arms and his face, causing him to fall to the ground screaming in pain. After Izuku did that, he looked at the rubble with tears and started calling out to his mother, but he never received an answer. After a few minutes had passed, a policeman approached him and took him away from the rubble, since unlike the hero who did not pay much attention to Izuku, the policeman had seen what happened, but even though the policeman wanted to help, he couldn't do anything. After the policeman took Izuku away, he took him to an ambulance to be checked out. After they saw that he was okay, the policeman took Izuku to testify about what happened at that place. A few hours after Izuku arrived at the police station and testified they let him out, he headed home. When he arrived at the door of the apartment where his mother and he lived, he met his mother's best friend, which was Mitsuki Bakugo's mother. When she saw Izuku there, she approached him and hugged him, and like Izuku, she was also shedding a few tears. She had seen what happened on television after it was shown on the news, and when she saw Izuku and knew that her friend died, she began to cry. After she saw that Izuku was taken to the police station, she left her house to wait for him in front of the door of her friend's house, since she wanted to comfort her son, and also that she wanted to take care of Izuku. After a while of both crying, Mitsuki proposed this to Izuku, but he shook his head because he wanted to keep the place where he and his mother lived. Mitsuki wanted to refuse what Izuku said because she didn't know how he could live alone, but Izuku told her that his father sent them money and that he could use the money they had to support himself. Mitsuki was still a bit unsure of what Izuku wanted to do, but after telling her that she would take care of him from time to time to see how he was, and if she saw that he wasn't well she would take him, and that Izuku would accept that, she left him alone. Which after seeing Mitsuki leave, he entered the apartment and went to the phone in the living room and called his father, to whom he told everything that happened, who became quite sad. Then he asked Izuku what he would do and if he wanted to go live with him, but Izuku told him no, that he wanted to stay here, to which Izuku's father was somewhat insecure, but then he told him that Mitsuki would take care of him sometimes to see how he was, and at that Izuku's father calmed down somewhat and decided to let him do what he wanted. He also told him that he would continue sending him money, something that Izuku was grateful for, since without his father's money he would have a hard time living. In the apartment, after Izuku's father told him that, Izuku hung up and went to his room, in which he locked himself in and began to cry, and in the middle of his crying he promised his mother that he would be a great hero. After that moment, Izuku stopped going to school for a week. After a week he returned to school, but in it most of the students looked at him with pity, something that Izuku did not care about. He always had a dejected face at school. They stopped bothering him for what happened. The only one who did not stop doing it was his friend Bakugo, but each time Izuku began to become more and more serious. Since the day he returned, each day that passed, Izuku was starting to be more serious. He began to not show emotions. Every time I have met his friend Kaken now, he only called him Bakugo. Since the day his mother died, Izuku began to change. He decided that he would be a great hero for his mother, but that did not mean that he would be the same. He got tired of the abuse of everyone. The Hero Academy. After a few years have passed, we can see a 14-year-old Izuku who was heading to his school. He looked quite changed. He didn't show any expression on his face, and it was noticeable that he was exercising, since his body was noticeable, since the uniform fits him perfectly. Izuku, a few months after his mother died, he sold everything he had from All Might and Eraserhead. Maybe he wanted to be a hero, but he didn't trust the heroes that existed now. He knew there was someone that could be trusted, but he couldn't trust them all. He still respected All Might and Eraserhead, but even so, the money he would get with his things would never hurt him. Izuku had also become quite intelligent, since one of the things he liked to do the most was read books of all kinds. Another thing he also began to like was chess. I have considered it quite interesting. He came to consider the world as a game of chess. He had some personalized chess pieces where all the pieces except the king were black, while the kings on both sides were red. Since his mother died, he had investigated a lot about everything that happened with heroes and villains. He realized that heroes and villains are not so different. Each one was on one side and both were in a war in which one of the two sides would win at one point, but even if it won, the game would restart. What he meant was that the world was a loop where light and darkness fought, but without one of the two the other could not exist. In short, without the villains the heroes would not exist, so it would always be a loop where they would always fight until one side won and the battle would restart. From the moment I learned about it, I considered everything as a game of chess. He knew that each side made a move and the other side made another move to counter the opponent's move. He understood that he needed to be smarter than the others in order to make the right moves at the right time. He also considered that the work of the vigilantes was more effective, since they did not have to follow the rules. They could make their own rules, something that the villains did, which made both of them enter into a fair fight. Instead, the heroes had limitations which made their effectiveness less. Also, many of the vigilantes completely eliminated the villains, something that was more effective than waxing them, since it meant that they could not do more damage. Instead, waxing the villains meant the possibility of an escape from them, and with this possibility came the possibility that these villains would become stronger, and do even more damage than the other times, something that was not good. Then Izuku considered more effective how the vigilantes did their job. He also understood the hero killer. He killed the heroes who were not true heroes, those who only sought fame and money that seemed good to Izuku. He knew that the work of the vigilantes was much more effective and much more practical, but still he would become a hero. Although he knew that the vigilantes were better to fight the villains, he wanted to make his mother being a professional hero. After Izuku arrived at his classroom, he sat where he always did. Since his attitude changed, he attracted a lot of attention, especially from the girls, but he still didn't care. After some time passed and the teacher came in, he started talking about things that could happen in the future, and showed some sheets of paper on which they could write what they wanted to be in the future. Izuku was reading on his desk because he found what the teacher was saying quite boring, but suddenly the teacher threw all the sheets of paper and shouted, "But who am I kidding? Everyone wants to be a hero." After he digested that, all the students activated their quirk, but after the students activated their quirk, and the teacher reminded them with a smile that they couldn't do that, an arrogant voice was heard. "Bakugo, Professor, don't put us all in the same bag. I won't be with these extras." At what Bakugo said, most of the class felt insulted and looked at Bakugo in a different way. But after that the teacher spoke, giving the news that Bakugo would take the exam to enter the UA. At that, most people were surprised, since that was the elite school in all of Japan. After Bakugo was a little more arrogant, saying that he would be the only one who would go to UA, the teacher spoke again, saying that Izuku was also going to take the exam for that academy. He said it with a somewhat mocking voice, which Izuku noticed but did not give it importance, since he knew that the idiot in front of him, and who he had as a teacher, did not know that he had a quirk, something that made Bakugo angry. After Izuku heard quick footsteps coming to his desk, he stopped, resting his head on the desk, and stood up straight, avoiding an explosion from Bakugo's quirk, which tried to give another explosion to Izuku, but he activated his quirk, and like the first time he activated it, Bakugo thought it was something that he couldn't do since he didn't gather enough sweat in his hands. After Izuku activated his quirk, he got up from his seat, grabbed his backpack, and started to leave the classroom while Bakugo continued trying to do his explosions. The teacher tried to stop Izuku, but he just gave him a cold look, which made the teacher stand still and say nothing. After Izuku left the classroom, Bakugo was able to use his quirk again, something that made him angry, since he thought that his control with his gift sometimes failed in the moments when he needed it most. After Izuku left school, he went to his apartment. After he arrived, he went to a table where there were some pictures of his mother, and next to them there was incense. He just said a small prayer and went to his room to change. School would end in a week in which he would not go since it was unnecessary, and after school ended there would only be 9 months left for the exams to start. To be able to enter the UA, he already had a hero suit that was really just a formal suit with some modifications. Before his mother died, he and she were looking at a store of formal suits, which caught Izuku's attention a lot. One day he bought a formal suit, and he liked how it looked on him and how it felt for him. It was comfortable to wear a formal suit. He had planned to use all this time he had until the UA exams started to train his quirk. More than anything, it would be to improve the distance of the area of his quirk so that it would be much better, although he also planned to start handling a metal staff. He would need it, since the only way he has to attack is his own ability in combat at the moment, is where he would have preferred to have an attack quirk. After Izuku got changed, he went out to his living room and started looking at his cell phone and thinking about what he would do that day. Time skipped 9 months. This day would be a day that would change what Izuku represented. In the end, he decided not to be a hero. Well, yes, he would be, but he had thought of a plan, which was to play the weak and come out as the strongest. He knew about the UA sports veto, and from what he knew, the students from the normal classes who wanted to move on to the hero class, if they came in first place, would be granted a place in one of the 2 hero classes. He had planned to go to the general classes, since that way it wouldn't be so strange, since if he entered the hero class it would mean that he had a quirk that would make it more difficult, and one of the reasons would be Bakugo. He had planned to do something simple. Win the sports festival and get into the hero class, or that's what he had thought about doing a day before the exam, but then he remembered a simple problem. He had already made the registration to take the exam for the hero course, which meant that his plan in the end could not be done. And although it was true that if he did not get a grade for the hero course he would enter general courses, he did not want to simply just failing. That didn't please him. So in the end he just decided to pass the exam as best he could, and that was it. Upon arriving at the Hero Academy, he entered alone without giving it much importance. Other people looked at him, both in amazement on the part of the girls and somewhat strange on the part of the men. The reason he was wearing his suit was because they did not understand why he was wearing it, since they thought it would make it difficult for him to move. Upon entering the academy, he looked for the room in which he had to take his theoretical exam, and as luck would have it, he had Bakugo by his side, who was looking at him very angrily while Izuku ignored him. After the exam began, Izuku finished it as quickly as possible since he wanted to leave the place. When he finished, he handed it over to his teacher and gave him instructions to get to where the second exam would begin. When Naruto arrived at the second exam room, he noticed that the place was quite large. After a few minutes, everyone else arrived at the room where President Mike explained the rules and all that. After the doors opened, the only one who ran out was Izuku, who as soon as he got out grabbed a metal stick that was on the ground and began to destroy robots. President Mike, what are you waiting for to begin? After President Mike digested that, the other examinees ran out, finding that there were already quite a few destroyed robots in the place, so most of them thought that they should hurry up or that boy would leave them without any points. Izuku, while he was defeating robots, he didn't care if he left them to the others. If he didn't leave them, less competition for him, less companions to have to see, less presences that he had to bother avoiding. While that was happening in the teacher's lounge, they were talking about different students, one of whom they had talked about was Bakugo and the other was Izuku, whose quirk they didn't know since from what they were seeing he hadn't used it. Nizu, that green-haired boy, is interesting. Midnight, because the director says so. Nizu, throughout this exam, his expression has never changed. He doesn't feel challenged by anything, so let's see what he can do about this. After the weird little rat thing that was the director digested that, he pressed a red button which made the entire floor of the testing area start to shake when suddenly in the middle of the exam area a giant robot appeared. Izuku, 0 points, you are a nuisance, I can't do anything against you. I don't have an attack quirk, I better go. Before he could run away, a girl's voice calling for help alerted him. Izuku, although I don't care about her life, I have to save her. That is the duty of a hero, so here we go. After Izuku thought about that, he jumped off the building he was landing on in a superhero pose. After that, he headed to where the girl was, which was a brown-haired girl who was buried under a piece of rubble which Izuku was lifting little by little. Izuku, how stupid, I already know what this girl's quirk is, why didn't she just use it? She's an idiot? After Izuku lifted the rubble enough, the girl crawled out since her legs were damaged, so Izuku carried her bridal style and started running away from the 0-point robot. After he got far enough away, the test ended and an old woman arrived at the place and healed everyone who needed it. In the end, Izuku left having to wait for his results even though he knew he had passed. Start of classes. After a week he had passed since the UA exam, Izuku had received a letter in which Director Nizu appeared talking to him about his points, which were quite a few, and that tomorrow he would receive his academy uniform. Izuku was surprised by the extra points he had gotten for saving that girl, since although he thought about something from a secret test in that exam, he never thought it was about saving people. That was interesting and quite convenient. The next day, as Nizu said in his hologram, the UA uniform arrived at his house. That day was Saturday. On Monday, classes would start, so they told him he was in room 1A of hero courses, something that also happened the first time he arrived at the academy. Luckily, the first time he went he came across the room where he would be, which he was completely fine with. After another day passed and it was Monday, Izuku got up early and began to prepare to go to UA. After he was fully prepared, he headed to the academy. Upon arriving, he alone went to his classroom, and upon entering, the first thing he noticed was a boy with glasses who moved his arms as if he were a robot scolding Bakugo. Upon seeing him, he began to move quickly towards him. Before Bakugo could reach his face, Izuku closed the door in his face. After that, he waited for Kagagu to open it, and quickly passed by Bakugo, thus dodging any attack he wanted to give him. Bakugo, damn. Izuku, shut up, you're annoying. After saying that, he went to an empty seat which was almost in the center. After a few minutes passed, the girl very recognized by Izuku with brown hair came through the door, which upon seeing Izuku approached him to thank him since she couldn't do it since he left after Recovery Girl arrived to heal her. While this girl whom Naruto had already known as Uraraka was telling him about her life, and why she was very grateful for his help blah blah blah, Izuku was thinking about how to introduce herself. Although he didn't care much about how they saw him, at a certain point he would need to have a good relationship with his classmates, although for him as long as it wasn't bad it was fine. After Uraraka finished talking she asked Izuku's name, which he gave it to her without any problem. After Izuku gave Uraraka his name she stuck a lot to Izuku's face, something that didn't affect him, but the moment she realized she blushed and started doing strange things. Izuku, is this girl interesting? You could say that. After a while of Uraraka continuing with her strange things, the teacher they would have arrived, which Izuku, upon recognizing him, made him somewhat excited after a long time since he was one of his favorite heroes, Eraserhead, who as soon as he arrived told them to go to the locker room and put on their sports uniforms since they would have some tests. After everyone left and arrived at the locker room, everyone started to change, but at one point a dwarf found a hole in the wall through which he could see the girls. He began to say a lot of things about them, but before he could continue, Izuku hit him in the face, sending him flying. Izuku, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you so hard, but you deserve it for being a pervert. After Izuku digested that, he covered the egg on the wall with the poster that was there before, while in the girls' locker room a certain girl with headphones on her ears was smiling. Momo, what's wrong, Jiro? Jiro, we owe the green-haired boy a thank you. Uraraka, what is Izuku pork? Jiro, he prevented the dwarf from spying on us. At what Jiro said, the other girls smiled as she did. After a few minutes, everyone went out to the courtyard to take the test, where many girls couldn't help but look at Izuku with a blush, since out of all of them, he was the only one who was obviously physically trained. Aizawa, well, we are going to do some tests, so you. I say that while pointing at Bakugo. Aizawa, come and throw this ball as far as possible with your quirk. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't get out of that circle. After Bakugo did it, and some boys said it would be fun, Aizawa threatened that the last place would be expelled, something that scared many. After that the tests began. Izuku, while I could prevent my classmates from passing with a very good grade by taking away their quirks, I'm not that bad either. Note, I will not put the test since Izuku does not really do anything special. After the tests ended, Professor Aizawa showed everyone's score, the last one being Minera, who began to cry for having been expelled on the first day. After he cried for a while, the professor warned that the expulsion was just a joke, which many were offended by since they thought it was true. Note, let's go to the next day. The day after the first class, we can find all the members of Class 1A in their classroom waiting for their teacher, who would be different, since it would be their teacher for their hero training. After a while, from the other side of the door, I'm entering like a normal person, was heard when the phrase All Might finished entering through the door, making everyone in the classroom excited except Izuku, who was thinking about what All Might said and how that was normal. All Might, okay guys, I'll be your teacher in hero training, so put on the suits you asked for that are inside these briefcases and let's do our plus ultra training. After I say that, several briefcases came out and were given to each student. After that we went to the scene where they are all outside a tunnel waiting for Izuku, who was the only one to come out. Izuku, I'm here. After he digested that, he showed that his superhero suit was a normal, ordinary formal suit. Mineta, it's a normal formal suit. Uraraka, you look great. Izuku. Izuku, first it's not a normal suit, and second, Uraraka, you look good in that suit. Uraraka, seriously, I'm good that you like it. After that conversation ended, All Might began to inform that his class today would be just battles of 2 people against 2 people, heroes versus villains. The villains had to protect a bomb and the heroes had to get to the bomb and touch it or defeat the villains. Quite simple. By fate, Izuku ended up on a team with Uraraka, who was very happy, while again, by fate, Bakugo was his opponent. Izuku, well, let's make him fall. Not only will I beat him, I will humiliate him. For some reason he is such an idiot that he still believes that I don't have a quirk. Since I think about it, it's strange that they haven't asked me about this. After Izuku saw some fights from other teams, it was his team's turn, so together with Uraraka they began to create a plan. Izuku, well, the Muslim is dumb, so he will come to attack me, so what we can do is that while I entertain him, you go and try to fight the speedster. After I defeat him, I will help you. Uraraka, okay, I agree. After talking about that and that time would start for the confrontation, they both entered the building where the bomb was. After walking for a while, they began to hear explosions and at one point, Izuku noticed how a wall was beginning to crack, so he grabbed Uraraka by the waist and threw her to the floor, falling on top of her. Uraraka, is Izuku good? Izuku, yes, and you? Uraraka, if the only thing is that. Izuku, seeing her so nervous, got off of her and looked at where the smoke from the explosion was. Bakugo, Deku. Izuku, Uraraka, go get the speedster, I'll take care of this one. Uraraka, yes. After I said that, Uraraka ran past Bakugo, who didn't give it any importance. Izuku, well, Bakugo, how are you looking forward to losing me? Bakugo, as if a useless person like you could beat me, you don't have a quirk, you can't beat me. In the room where the other students and All Might saw that, they were surprised by what Bakugo said. Izuku, as stupid and arrogant as always, I told you when we were 4 years old I do have a quirk, but unlike you, I was never arrogant, who just because he had a powerful quirk believed himself to be the best and intimidated others. That is why today I come to take away your arrogance through not only a defeat but rather through humiliation. Bakugo, even if you have a quirk, it won't be as cool and powerful as mine. Izuku, that's why I also consider you an idiot. It's not about the quirk but about how you use it. That's why in this chess game it has been a complete checkmate, so attack me with everything you have. Bakugo, die. After Bakugo said that, he launched himself to be able to give Izuku an explosion which never came out, and his hand which he had raised to launch the explosion was grabbed by Izuku to throw him into a wall. Izuku, bad Bakugo, you should know that it will never work. Bakugo, why didn't my quirk activate? Izuku, as I said, the moment you were arrogant you lost. While the battle continued with Bakugo unable to use his quirk and Izuku who did not defeat him, he only dodged him to humiliate him as much as possible in the chamber room. All Might was surprised since from what he could tell with what he saw, Izuku had a power similar to Aizawa's. Bakugo, damn, what's your quirk? Izuku, haha, it's not obvious. The power to remove a quirk is my quirk itself. I have the same power as our master Aizawa or Eraserhead, only that apparently mine is more powerful. Bakugo, wait, how is it more powerful? Izuku, if mine is not necessary to look at my target, the only thing I need is concentration, but the true ability of my quirk is area. After I said that, everyone, even those in the camera area, stopped being able to use their quirk. Izuku, right now everyone within a few meters area can't use their quirk. Bakugo, but that also affects your partner. Izuku, yes, but who will be affected more, my partner, whose mission is only to capture a target, or your partner, who needs to stop my partner? Bamagu, damn it. Izuku, as I said before, this is a damn arrogant checkmate. More classes. After Izuku said that out loud, All Might's voice was heard through microphones in the building saying the word. The heroes win. Izuku, upon hearing All Might, touched his ear and spoke. Izuku, well done, Uraraka. Uraraka, Izuku, do you know what happened? I couldn't use my quirk, either could Lida. Izuku, yes, I'm sorry, I used my quirk. Uraraka, your quirk? Izuku, if my quirk eliminates the quirk of all the people who are in the area that my quirk affects, I have trained it since I was little, so the area range is very large, that is why it also affected you, I'm sorry. Uraraka, who seriously, your quirk is amazing. Izuku, yours is great too, Uraraka, it's very useful. Uraraka, thank you, Izuku-kun. Izuku-kun? That's new. Well, Uraraka, how about we go to the exit and meet up with our classmates? Uraraka, yes, I'm heading there. After Izuku looked back at Bakugo, who still couldn't activate his explosions, and was looking at him with an angry face, he spoke. Izuku, I told you at that time I have a quirk, the only thing I didn't know was how it worked. Bakugo, I want revenge. Izuku, your needs are not my problem. After Izuku digested that, he began to walk towards the exit so he could meet up with Uraraka, and then return to his companions. After a while of Izuku walking to the exit, he went out and met Uraraka, who was waiting for him. Izuku hour. Uraraka, hi Izuku-kun, by the way, good job. Izuku likewise. After those little words they began to head to the chamber room in which upon entering everyone looked at Izuku. Izuku what? Yeah, sure. After Izuku digested that he deactivated his quirk and everyone could now use their quirk. All might, young Midoriya. Izuku yes? All power, how far does your quirk reach? Izuku, whatever you want, but the extent to which I can maintain it forever is 820 meters, but I can reach a kilometer and have it activated for about 6 hours. All might, incredible, that's too much both as an area of effect and time of use, but before you had only taken away the quirk from young Bakugo, how did he do that without us being affected? Izuku, simple, by concentrating on my targets I can remove their quirk without affecting others. In total I can remove the quirk of 2 people without affecting those around me, but I need a lot of concentration, and when I use my quirk on only 2 people I do need to have them in front of me, while if I only use it with one it doesn't matter where it is. As long as I have it located their quirk will be null. Alright, I see. Well, let the next team go. After All Might digested that, the next and last team came in. After they finished, the students from Group 1A returned to their classroom to start their normal classes. Note: yes, I will make Izuku's quirk stronger in the way that his quirk area of effect also serves as a sensor, meaning that he will know where each person is, and at the time if he trains it, he will be able to affect only the people he wants while they are in their area. The day after Class 1A had their first hero class with All Might at the entrance gate to the academy, there were many people interviewing students to ask them about All Might. That made Izuku put on a poker face and start walking through the middle of the press, ignoring them completely, but in the middle of his walk he noticed a certain black-haired girl who was being overwhelmed by so much press, to which Izuku began to approach her, and when he had her within reach Izuku took her by the waist. Izuku, look, it's all right. After Izuku digested that, all the members of the press looked in the direction where Izuku was pointing, where there was nothing. When they turned around to look at Izuku, he was already inside the academy with the girl he had saved from the press, holding his hand. Izuku, are you okay? Momo, I thank you from Midoriya. Izuku, you're welcome, Yaoyorozu. Momo, please tell me, Momo. Izuku, okay Momo, then you tell me, Izuku. After that conversation ended, Momo looked at Izuku's hands as they were still holding hands, which made her blush. Izuku lost. Momo, don't worry. After they finished their conversation they entered their classroom, in which after their teacher entered with a serious face and made most of the class nervous, he told them that they would have to choose a group representative, to which everyone thought of a normal school activity. After the teacher said that he would fall asleep and that they would do it on their own, everyone started to apply, but since it was a mess, Lita gave a better way to choose, which was by voting, to which everyone agreed since it was worth what Tsuyu said because everyone would vote for themselves. But anyway, nobody paid attention and they did the voting thing. In the end, Izuku was the representative and Momo was the vice representative. When Izuku noticed that he would be the representative, he looked at Uraraka, who wasn't looking at him and was whistling. That told him that she had voted for him. Izuku, I. Before he could finish, the Muslim interrupted him. Bakugo, who voted for him. But before he finished, Izuku interrupted him. Izuku, shut up, cheap imitation of Deidara. That said, I mean, I don't want to be the president, and I give my position to Momo. Momo, seriously. Izuku, yes. Momo hugs him when she hears him. Momo, thank you, Izuku-kun. That made Uraraka look angrily at Momo, while others just stood there with a face of what happened until a dwarf spoke. Mineta, damn lucky guy, the president likes you. At this, Momo took out a metal bar from her body and threw it at his face, hitting him squarely. Izuku, well, it's time for a break, let's go. After a few seconds of saying that, the bell for the break rang and everyone went out to eat. While they were in the school cafeteria, the alarms began to sound that someone had come to invade the building. That made all the students get upset, and they began to desperately leave the cafeteria, but Izuku noticed that those who had invaded the facilities were the reporters. Izuki, they are a nuisance, everyone stop being so alert, it was just the reporters. At what Izuku said, no one listened to him, which made him narrow his eyes, so he approached Uraraka, who was nearby, and asked her to use her gift on him, to which she did. After Izuku began to levitate, he had a tray of food which he dropped on the floor, which made enough noise to attract everyone's attention. Izuku, now you guys stop acting like little kids and listen right now. The ones who entered the place are the reporters, so calm down, you look like fools. That insulted many, but they could not deny anything since it was true. After that happened and everyone calmed down and went back to enjoying their break, Izuku was already heading to his classroom since the break was over when he arrived at the classroom and sat down to wait for the teacher. When he arrived, he informed them about a trip they would have on which they would go to do some rescue tests, which excited many since in a few days they would go on a type of school trip. Their teacher told them more or less what they would have to do and that they would be accompanied by 2 teachers other than him, which everyone understood, although some wanted to ask which teachers would accompany them, but Aizawa told them that he would not tell them anything, to which the students gave up. Time skip 3 days. After a few days had passed, the UA students, well, more exactly those from Group 1A, were heading to the truck that would take them to the facilities to be able to do their rescue practices. Upon arriving at the rescue facilities, they saw Hero 13, who explained to them that their quirks, just as they could help, could also harm, and more things that were explained to them. After Hero 13 finished speaking, a purple mist began to emerge from the facilities and from them came several villains. Kirihima, great, they also have fake villains. Aizawa, these aren't fake villains, 13, take care of them and take them to the exit. Uraraka, Professor Aizawa, what are you going to do? Aizawa, I will face them. Uraraka, but that's dangerous. After she said that, Aizawa launched himself at the villains who were being crushed by Aizawa. Izuku, not bad, let's help him a bit. After Izuku said that with his quirk, he began to take away the quirk from the villains, he could help Aizawa a little. Izuku, it would help more if I fought him, but I'm sure they wouldn't let me or something like that. Let's break their faces, so I bet 1,000 yen that Eraserhead wins. Shigaraki, first Kyojiri, don't let them escape, and second, boy, I bet 1,000 that those vials will win. Izuku, you're there. After that, Izuku was pulled by Uraraka, who along with the others were escaping until Kyojiri appeared, and although for a moment 13 stopped him before he could teleport everyone to different places, he was damaged, which caused all the students to be teleported to different places. Izuku, the frog called Tsuyu, and the dwarf that I don't like were teleported to an area full of water. Izuku, okay Tsuyu, can you take us to the top of that ship? Tsuyu, Simon. Izuki, what? Tsuyu, yes, it's okay. After that was said, Tsuyu carried Izuku and the dwarf to the top of the ship with her tongue. Izuku, I don't know, it feels weird that you caught us with your tongue, but other than that we're fine. Mineta, are we okay? How can you say that? There are many villains below us. We are going to die. Izuku, from what I see you're afraid. I'm sure you can be a hero. Only those who are afraid die. It has been shown many times. Tsuyu, leaving that aside, they're going to attack us with a water fist. I say this while watching a giant fist of water made by a villain's quirk approaching. Izuku, what are you talking about? I don't see anything. After Izuku digested that, he activated his quirk, which took away the quirk of all the villains who were in his area. Izuku, well then we can do several things, and one of them is to stay until help comes, but I'm not much of a waiter, so I propose we do something else. Tsuyu, I agree. Mineta, they say it's better that we stay here where we'll be safe. Izuku, okay sure, do you stay? Tsuyu, do you want to go with me? Tsuyu, yes. Mineta, wait, take me with you. Izuku, what do you say? Tsuyu, even if we want to, we can't leave it here. Izuku, you're right, well how about we tie him up and take him as if he were kidnapped? Izuku, good idea. After that they tied Mineta with a rope that was on the boat, and took him in the direction where Aizawa was. League of Villains. After Izuku and Tsuyu tied up Mineta and they headed to where Aizawa was, they arrived and found the bird on steroids stepping on their sensei, while around them the villains were knocked out, leaving only the mist with the hand fetish and the bird on steroids. Seeing that, Izuku grabbed a rod that he found on the ground and ran towards the Noma. When he reached a point close to him, he placed the rod in his exposed brain, which made the Noma release Aizawa. Izuku, Tsuyu, take it. Tsuyu heard that he grabbed Aizawa with her tongue and pulled him out of that place, and Izuku tried to erase Noma's quirk but realized that he couldn't. That made him growl since he knew that he was no match for that thing. Knowing that, he walked away from the place. Izuku, hey fetishist, you owe me money. It seems my master beat the villains. Shigaraki, he didn't beat Noma. Izuku, in the bet we were talking about the villains, not about that thing or you or the fog, so kill me that. Shigaraki, well, you won, but unlike the heroes, I don't keep my word. Izuku, son of a, that's not what you do, that shows you have no honor. After Izuku said that, he launched himself at Shigaraki, who was almost stopped by a blow from Bomu, which Izuku dodged by sweeping across the ground. After he did that, he quickly got up and continued running towards where Shigaraki was while Tsuyu and Minera watched him. After almost arriving, he threw himself to the ground, doing a spin as the Noma jumped to try to crush him just like the previous time. Just dodging it, he got up to go against Shigaraki again, who tried to touch him to disintegrate him, but at that moment Izuku activated his power, taking away the power from Shigaraki, who took his hand. He broke it then. He did a spin in his same place, and kicked him in the head, which made him fly. After doing that, he jumped to the left as Noma punched the ground, which destroyed it. After Izuku dodged it, he launched himself again against Shigaraki, who tried to punch Izuku, who crouched down, and began to spin on the ground, kicking Shigaraki several times. It was as if Izuku was break-dancing again. Noma threw a punch at him, which Izuku this time could not dodge, so he put his hands in, and in Izuku's eyes a different look was noticed. While he was standing, he put his hand in one of the pockets of his suit, from which he took out a chess piece, more precisely the king. Izuku, you know, unlike me and you, I don't let my subordinates fight alone, I fight alongside them. That's what makes me better than you. After saying that, he dropped the piece to the ground and two metal bars came out of his sleeves that after Izuku turned them and made a hitting movement, they became larger. Izuku, so we're going to play bird on steroids, but first of all I don't want any interruptions. After saying that, Izuku activated his quirk at maximum power, which made it so that no one in the entire facility could use their quirk. Even Kurogiri was affected, since his mist no longer appeared and only his figure remained, but he could not move his mist to teleport someone or himself to another place. Kurogiri, this is bad. Izuku smiled evilly. Izuku, come on, little bird, it's time for us to play who survives. After Izuku digested that, he launched himself at the Noma, who threw a punch at Izuku, who dodged it, and hit him in the face with one of his two staffs. After that first punch, it looked like a fight where two very different things faced each other. One of them was strength, while on the other side it was speed and skill. Izuku, come on, League of Villains, this is all you have, a creation that is made to kill All Might. You can't fight me, so what hope do you have against him? After Izuku digested that, he received a blow from the Noma, which did not do much damage since he blocked it with his staffs. After he sent him flying, he again launched an attack, but this time he activated one of the things that his staff had, and it was that at the tips a button came out with a dagger. While Izuku was fighting outside the facilities, the heroes were arriving, but they stopped when they noticed that at a certain point in their journey their quirk was deactivated. No, not only that, but they couldn't use it. All Might, this is young Midoriya. Nizu, why do I activate such a large area? All Might, I don't know, but if it continues like this we won't be able to help. After that was discussed, they continued their journey to reach the facilities. When they arrived they saw Izuku's fight against the bird, but when they saw that it was a stagnant fight they decided to intervene. All Might, young Midoriya, deactivate your quirk. At what All Might said, Izuku walked away from Nomu and turned to look at him, and upon seeing him, he only left his evil smile and returned to what could be called normality. After that he deactivated his quirk, which returned all their quirks, while Shigaraki, seeing All Might, ordered Nomu to kill him, who did not hesitate for a moment and attacked him. Izuku, upon hearing him, he activated his quirk but only concentrated on Kurogiri to keep him in that place while Shigaraki would watch him, and if necessary he would use his quirk on him. After Izuku deactivated his quirk All Might, he launched himself against the Noma with the help of the other heroes, who more than helping were only a support to All Might, while others tried to fight against Kurogiri and Shigaraki, who were in trouble since they were literally defenseless by not being able to use their quirk. Kurogiri were both trapped in that place, in a place where they were completely surrounded by professional heroes and a child who faced Nomu. Note: I had forgotten that the heroes arrived after All Might, but well, let's see what happens. One more thing. I will advance one more thing since I think we are stagnant a lot in this part, so let's make our best effort. After a few minutes in which the fight between Nomu and All Might would no longer be stagnant, All Might used what can be said to be the FUA, and in a loud and strong voice he shouted plus ultra, thus using more power in his attacks, which made the Nomu and quite a few rocks etc. fly out due to All Might's attack. One of those stones almost hit Izuku, but he realized it and was able to dodge it, but when he lost concentration from dodging it allowed Kurogiri to be able to use his quirk in that way, being able to escape with Shigaraki, who before he could leave received a hit from a stone that Izuku threw because he hadn't paid him what they had agreed upon. Izuku, we'll see each other again. Remember that you owe me money. After those last words, Kurogiri and Shigaraki disappeared from existence, returning to their base. After a few seconds passed, the teachers began to check on the students while Recovery Girl was healing the wounded, of which there were not many. The most wounded was Izuku, and he was not that wounded either. Izuku, thank you. Recovery, you should be more careful. Izuku, yes. Recovery, you understood. Izuku, yes. After Izuku was healed, Recovery went to Aizawa, who was the most injured of all. Then the other one who was injured was 13, and they had to be taken to a hospital for their serious injuries, which although Recovery could help, it could not cure them completely. After the heroes checked all the students, they began to question them about what happened, to which they responded the way they saw what happened. When they arrived with Izuku, they did not ask him what happened but why he fought. Izuku, well, he owed me money. Any hero, the one who owed you money. Izuku, the fetishist. Hero, he didn't want to pay you. Izuku, no. Hero, he has no honor. Well, boy, go with your companions. Izuku, yes. After several more things in which they asked Izuku things, mostly his classmates, to whom Izuku ignored most of the questions, and the others that he did answer, he answered in a way in which he hardly said anything. Most of the time he only answered questions which were yes and no questions. The next day on the news throughout the city, a video had been shown in which it showed what happened in the facilities of the UA, in which it was seen how the students fought against the villains, but more than anything what was seen the most, and what caught the most attention, was the fight of Izuku with the last three villains that remained, and the Battle of All Might against Nomu. Those two battles were the most seen and the most talked about by the press, while the students of the UA were doing it because they were in classes looking at their teacher in a strange way, since according to them he should be in a hospital since he was completely bandaged, and the only part of his body that could be seen were his eyes. Aizawa, well, pay attention, the UA's sports festival will be coming soon. Izuku, something interesting, but he didn't win anything by winning, so what's the point of trying hard if I won't win anything? It's just a waste of time and energy. If we win, we will win something. Aizawa, well, yes and no, it doesn't matter if they win or lose, it's just that they demonstrate skill, since in that way a hero company can train them, for example the Endeavor Company or something like that. Izuku, so first place doesn't win anything special. Aizawa, no. Izuku, I see, well, it doesn't bother me too much to try to win if I don't win anything, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to make life harder for others, ha ha ha. After the teacher gave more explanations about the sports festival, all the students in the classroom were preparing to leave their classroom, but as soon as they opened the door, they found a crowd of students blocking it. Before that, Izuku just started to walk past as if no one was around him, while Bakugo stayed arguing with a boy from class 1B. Izuku, I have to improve the range of effect of my quirk to be able to take away the quirk of everyone at the festival, and I also have to ask for an improvement for my suit. A harder, more flexible and less heavy material will be necessary, and if possible some gloves and shoes that have metal plates for more damage in kicks and punches, and I don't know, maybe an improvement to the sticks that I use, if that would be good. Sports festival. The day after Aizawa told them about the sports festival, Izuku was heading to the support room to ask for improvements to his suit. He was on his way, but one thing that caught his attention was that right in the place he was going, Uraraka and Lita were already there, knocking on the door to see if anyone was there. But before he could say anything or anything else happened, the door flew off due to an explosion from which a pink-haired girl came out and apologized for it. After that, she asked what they were doing there, while Lita got up. Uraraka, suit upgrade. Lita, the same. Izuku, same. Izuku's voice scared Uraraka and Lita, who had not noticed his presence. Mei, really well, I am handsome Mei and I will help you. Izuku, yes. Mei, wow, you're interesting, tell me you exercise, right? Mei was saying that while touching Izuku's entire body while he had a neutral face. Izuku, yes. Uraraka, but what are you doing, Mei? Mei, touching her body, fence is quite strong. Izuku, I guess. Mei, what do you want to do with your suit? Izuku, the things I would like I have in this paper. After saying that, Izuku gave her the paper where he had all the improvements he wanted to make to his suit, and Mei got excited when she saw the improvements. Mei, I can make extra improvements. Izuku, sure, but I'd like to know what improvements those would be. Mei, I don't know what I can think of in the middle of improving your suit. Izuku, what do you think if we make these improvements that you want while we are together so that I can tell you yes or no? Mei, I think that's fine. Uraraka, but that would be like a date, right? Mei, it could be. Izuku, it's similar, but that being said, then handsome-san, when I can see you and you're not so busy. Mei, if you want now. Izuku, okay. Uraraka, Izuku, but we have classes. Izuku, if he doesn't go, there won't be any problems. Lita, but you can't miss classes. Izuku, Lita, I leave the problem to you, you are a hero, help me, how will you help those who are in trouble? This will be a training mission. Lita, I see, I understand this can help me. Izuku, exactly, while I will stay with Hatsum-san. Mei, call me Mei. Izuku, I'll stay with Mei-san. Mei, not just Mei or Mei-chan, you decide. Izuku, well, I'll stay with Mei. Uraraka, no, Izuku, I won't let you stay alone with her. Izuku, then stay with me. Uraraka, okay. Lita, but... Izuku, your mission just got more difficult. Are you going to abandon it or continue with it like a true hero? Lita, I will continue it, but I still don't know what this mission is about. Izuku, not all heroes always receive support or are with companions who help them in certain circumstances. So in this way you will know more or less what happens when you are a green hero. You arrived with companions but you will leave without them, then you have the mission to finish your job without your companions. Lita, I understand now. Izuku, yes, but before that, leave what you want to improve, otherwise your mission will fail. Lita, yes. After that, Lita left what she wanted done and left while Uraraka and Izuku stayed so they could watch Mei work and come up with ideas for improvements for Izuku. Mei, well, what you want is for your suit to be more flexible, more comfortable, more resistant and lighter. Izuku, yes. Mei, okay, but first of all I'll take off my clothes. Uraraka, what? Izuku, good. Uraraka, what? Izuku, calm down. After Izuku took off his shirt, Mei began to measure Izuku's body with a measuring tape so she could make his suit in a way that it would fit him perfectly. Uraraka, I just wanted to measure you. Izuku, what were you thinking I wanted? Uraraka, nothing, I was thinking, no, because I would think something weird, no, I didn't think anything weird. Mei, okay, now I have your measurements, now we just need to make the suit and the other improvements, which are metal plates on your shoes and gloves with metal plates so you can hit and kick harder. Izuku, yes. Me, but tell me Izuku-in. Uraraka, Izuku-in. Note, a mean would be perfect here. Izuku, what's wrong? Mei, what is your quirk? Izuku, my quirk has no name but it could be a cancellation. Mei, like the one from Eraserhead. Izuku, yes, it follows the same principle of erasing gifts, but mine is an evolution of his. Mei, it makes sense, that's why you have such an athletic body. After I said that, both Uraraka and Mei looked at Izuku's body and Uraraka had a big blush, that's why after Mei only had a small one. Izuku, if my quirk is not an attack one, it puts me on an equal footing against my opponents since they won't have them either. But my quirk is not an attack one, I need an attack advantage, That's why I train daily, and that's also why I know martial arts. Mei, I see, Izuku. One of the things I wanted to suggest to you was that your shoes also had metal in the heels and that they had metal as a base. They will be a little heavier, but with that you will be able to give different kicks and do damage with the metal that those parts have. Izuku, I see there is no metal that is black and is light but just as strong as others. Mei, I think so, yes, if there is, let me use that one, it will be more useful to you. Izuku, thanks Mei. Mei, you're welcome Izuku, but tell me, wouldn't you be interested in some glasses? Izuku, glasses for what? Mei, if your power is like Eraserhead's, then you have to see an enemy to take away their quirk, right? Izuku, no, although it helps me do it more easily, I can take it from him no matter where he is, as long as he is focused and in my range. Mei, think about it, some stylish glasses that match your suit, which can prevent you from being attacked by dust directly. They could also have headphones so you can listen to the police radio in case there is trouble, and so on. Izuku, I see, they sound useful. Mei, if they could also have more useful things. Izuku, well, if I leave it in your hands, Mei. Mei, leave it to me, Izuku-kun, I won't let you down. Izuku, thanks again, Mei. After that, Izuku and Uraraka, who had left him what he wanted with her suit at the beginning of everything, left there to go to their classroom. Uraraka, why did you let him touch you so much? Izuku, it was necessary, Uraraka. Uraraka, no, it wasn't. Izuku, it's okay, I won't let them touch me that much. Uraraka, that doesn't convince me. Izuku, well, there's nothing that can be done. After that they both arrived at the classroom where they entered and were gifted by Aizawa, but Izuku lied about having problems, thus avoiding a punishment from his teacher. Time skip 5 days. In those 5 days Izuku kept training to improve his quirk. On the 4th day when his suit arrived he tried it on and used it to get used to it, and although he couldn't use it at the sports festival, it was always good to have knowledge about his hero suit. This day the sports festival was held where everyone was excited and Bakugo had just finished presenting a speech. Note, I don't remember if I said if Izuku was the first place, but if I said it, think that it is Bakugo. Bakugo's speech according to Izuku was arrogant, too simple and too unnecessary. It would have been better according to him if he had just kept quiet, he would have done a service to society. His voice was annoying, after Bakugo's poor speech. The first event was decided by a roulette wheel which spun midnight while the presenter was presenting a mic. At the end of the test was an obstacle course, and at the moment, when they were all positioned at the starting lines, Izuku smiled evilly and looked around until he found Bakugo. Izuku, Muslim knowledge. Bakugo, what did you say, you useless bastard? Izuku, I'll give you a hint of what will happen, but for that I need you to watch how my lips move. At that Izuku began to say a word without releasing a single sound from his mouth. He only moved his lips, but Bakugo came to understand what he said. Bakugo, that useless guy plans to leave us without quirk. Before Bakugo could say anything Izuku shouted. Izuku, let's see how it feels to be all equal. Right after that the race began, but Todoroki's plan of putting an ice wall right behind him didn't come true since his quirk didn't work, and like his plan many didn't work, like Lita's speed, who stood still surprised by the little speed he was able to use, but of all of them only one ran out, which was quite fast even without having a quirk. But while that was happening in the commentator's place, President Mike was strange. President Mike, but what happened? All the students have remained still. Only one has run away. But it is not known why. Aizawa sighed when he saw that. President Mike, Aizawa, do you know what's going on? Aizawa, that was one of my students and the only one who ran away, Izuku Midoriya, who has a quirk similar to mine, only his is more powerful. He can cancel the quirks of everyone around him, and his range can reach more than 600 meters, and he can also use his quirk on a single person. President Mike, you're telling me that all the students right now don't have a quirk? Aizawa, yes, and there is no way to stop Izuku's quirk. This festival is no longer a festival where quirks are evaluated. Now physical abilities are being evaluated, and he is good at these. President Mike, Aizawa, your students are amazing. The entire crowd, upon hearing what Aizawa said, was excited since that boy was someone powerful. While in the race you could see the students running, but many were tired due to their poor physical shape. They were only able to do things thanks to their quirks. That was something that Izuku saw as a weakness. He had already passed the area of the robots, and was in the area of the platforms, and the abyss. He was alone jumping from platform to platform, something easy but slow without a quirk. He had this in his favor. The only ones who managed to reach him or do something were the support ones, since they had their tools with them which helped them as if they were a quirk, but all the others who didn't have that were like if they were people without a quirk, and that was what Izuku wanted. For them to see what it felt like and to learn that a quirk wasn't everything. In the end, after a while, Izuku finished first after having crossed the mine area, and as expected, many of those who passed after him were members of the support groups, but in the end, Todoroki, Bakugo, Lida, Momo, Uraraka and Ojiro managed to pass, which was helped by his tail. The others managed to get there, but the others couldn't pass with a very good position since their quirks didn't work, and Lida only passed because her physical condition was good by always running. When Izuku reached the finish line first, he did not deactivate his quirks so that it would still be difficult for them to reach the finish line when all the other Bakugo arrived, and he was cursing Izuku for the position he arrived in. Many of the participants drew from the festival due to fatigue from the race, something that Izuku was also looking for, which was completely fine. Izuku, what happened? They couldn't use their quirk. Momo, Izuku-kun, that was cruel. Izuku, haha. Sports Festival 2. After everything calmed down, Midnight spun the wheel again to see what the next activity would be, which in the end was cavalry combat, and at that point he was also informed that first place would have 10 million points, to which everyone began to look at Izuku as if he were prey, but he returned their gaze with one of pure evil. And that look reminded a certain blonde of a certain supervillain. After the rules were explained, he approached me. Izuku, hey Midnight. Midnight, what's up, young man? Izuku, and apart, I can do this test alone. Midnight, ha, okay, I guess if you agree with that. Izuku, of course I agree. Midnight, good. At that Izuku smiled and just left with that evil smile, while his eyes started to shine for a moment. After all the teams were made, everyone was attentive, especially to the person who had been given the most to talk about in this competition. First place Izuku Midoriya just started the test, and Izuku spoke. Izuku, let's play. After saying that, he activated his quirk again, causing many to fall since his quirk was strength, causing them to be disqualified. Izuku, eat and lose. After saying that, Izuku ran towards all the other students, most of whom he threw using martial arts, and at the same time he took their ribbons. Izuku, come on, what's happening? That's all you have. This is my vendetta. After saying that, he dodged a blow from Todoroki, who wanted to take away his 10 million ribbon. Izuku, no, Todoroki, it won't be that easy, but okay, let's get serious. After saying that, Izuku put on a serious look, leaving his evil gaze while his eyes continued to look, which were looking everywhere. Note, like those from Madara when he was fighting against the Alliance. After the others moved, Izuku threw himself to the ground, doing a spin in it, and then using his hands to push himself off the ground and go over an enemy which he couldn't catch, and then just fell. He jumped again, falling on his hands, and then did a spin, kicking two different teams, causing them to lose some control over their stability. After doing that, he stood up and then dodged two blows from Bakugo, who received an elbow blow from Izuku, who did a split to dodge an attack from a team which he wanted. After doing that, he turned again on the ground and then stood up again and launched himself against a team which he couldn't do anything after receiving a few blows to the legs from Izuku, who before they fell took their ribbons, thus adding a large sum of points. While that battle was taking place, where it was more than anything one against all in the stands, everyone was surprised to see the level of combat of the green-haired boy who had not even been touched, while the one who was most excited was presenter Mike, who was shouting with excitement for the great battle that was taking place at this moment. Bakugo, you're just useless, you couldn't do anything if you had my quirk. Izuku, that's the point, idiot, to be on equal terms, but okay, let's see what you said. After saying that, Izuku deactivated his quirk. Just like that, he had to dodge an ice spike that came from Todoroki. Before that, Izuku just put his hand on his neck and squeezed it a bit, making his bone crack. Izuku, There are 2 minutes left, 2 minutes to humiliate you, since I see that you do not understand that I am not locked up with you, you are locked up with me. After saying that, he began to run towards Bakugo while acrobatically dodging Todoroki's ice spikes, who was getting frustrated. He also had to dodge a rubber bullet which was launched by a gun that Momo had. After being close to Bakugo, he launched an explosion which he dodged by crawling on the ground and then pushing himself with his hands to hit Bakugo with his heel, who almost fell but was able to stay above his companions by making explosions to stay at a point in the air. After seeing that, Izuku dodged another ice spike and began to move to attack Todoroki, who was doing everything possible to hit him with his ice, but it was impossible to hit Izuku, who at one point tore off one of Todoroki's spikes and threw it at Bakugo, who wanted to give him an explosion from behind, causing him to start bleeding from his arm from Izuku's attack. While Izuku ran to attack Todoroki, he closed his eyes for a moment, then when he opened them they started to shine even more. After Izuku managed to dodge an ice attack that was going straight to his face, he jumped and kneed Todoroki in the face, which started bleeding from his nose. After Izuku did that, he removed a bandage from Todoroki, who tried to retrieve it, but Izuku hit him in the nose again. But before he could fall, the time bell rang. Present mic. Time is up, and continuing with his streak of 2 tests won. First place is Izuku Midoriya, who has 10,003,340 points. That's incredible. At that, Izuku moved his hand to his hair to move it a little, also to remove some of the sweat from his forehead, while he looked at one of the cameras and winked, causing several girls to blush at Izuku's action. Midnight was also one of those who blushed. Midnight, well, the last test will be one-on-one combats. Izuku, I think this will be pretty easy. I won't need to use my area quirk here, so everything will be fine. And as Izuku said, the fights were just one-on-one, easy for him when using his quirks, since he was one of the few who without a quirk already had good fighting skills. His first battle was against Momo, something that had him somewhat upset, especially because he knew he was going to win, but he didn't want to hurt Momo. When they were facing each other and the fight started, he asked her to surrender, which Momo refused, and at that, Izuku's eyes became harder. After that, Izuku began to approach her slowly, just walking while she made swords, something that surprised her since Izuku was not using his quirk. End of the festival. Finally, after Izuku was approaching Momo while she pointed her swords at him to prepare an attack, Izuku spoke again, which he again asked her to surrender, something that Momo rejected since according to her a future hero cannot surrender. Izuku, it doesn't matter if you're a future hero or not, a person can't face someone stronger than him. It's for these reasons that lives can be lost. If a hero faces a villain who is stronger than him, the hero is capable of putting his life and that of others at risk. That's why there are situations in which the best option is not to fight. After all, there are several ways to win a fight, so give up. Momo, I'm sorry Izuku-kun, but I won't give up. I want to prove myself to you so you can see that I'm strong. Izuku, strength, do you want to be strong? Momo, yes. Izuku, tell me, what is strength? Momo, what? Izuku, what is strength? Momo, well, strength is someone's strength, their power. Izuku, is that strength to you? Momo, yes. Izuku, for me, strength is just a word. After Izuku said that, he started to run, and quickly arrived near Momo, who gave a horizontal cut with her 2 swords which never hit because she could not see the time it would take Izuku to arrive, nor could she see how far her swords could reach, to which Izuku easily dodged it, which made Momo be in a very complicated situation since she had left a very large opening for an attack which she could not block due to the position she was in, and she could not dodge either since she knew that Izuku was very good at martial arts. Izuku, seeing the large opening that Momo left, approached her, took her by the shoulder, pushed her back and put one of his legs behind hers, causing her to fall. But before she hit the ground, he grabbed her waist with one of his hands while in the other he had one of Momo's swords, which she released at the moment she was going to fall, which Izuku had pointed at her neck. Izuku, Jake mate. Momo could only shed a few small tears upon hearing this. But what could still be seen most on her face was the red color that she had all over her face due to the position they were in, and even more so being in the sights of so many people. Izuku, so surrender Momo, there is nothing you can do in this situation, you are cornered. Momo, fine, I give up. Before he did that, he dropped the sword and stood up. Momo. Present mic. The winner is Izuku Midoriya. Momo, I couldn't try it on. Izuku, you don't need to do it. This simple fact that you wouldn't have given up or something like that after the villain's thing is enough proof that in your opinion you are strong. Momo, thank you, Izuku-kun. Izuku, yes sure, well now I just need to ask you something. Momo, what? Izuku, do you want us to go to the stands holding hands or not? I said that, Izuku, while looking at how they were holding hands. Momo, well if you don't mind we can go like this. Izuku, okay let's go. After saying that, they both went hand in hand to the stands where their classmates congratulated Izuku and as best they could, encouraged Momo for losing the fight. Note: I don't even remember how the fights are going, so we will start with the final fights. Present mic. The next ones to fight will be Todoroki versus Izuku. After those words were said, they both went down to the stadium. Present mic, begin. Todoroki, surrender Midoriya. Izuku, I should be saying that. Todoroki, don't think you're strong just because you won in previous competitions. Izuku, okay then let's play, but I want you to use all your power, don't just use half. Todoroki, I won't use that power. Izuku, let's go. Todoroki, no, did my father buy you so you could ask me to use it? Izuku, I don't care about your father's existence, and although it's true that I wanted him to convince you to use your power, the truth is I don't care if you do it or not. Todoroki, then why do you ask me to use it? Izuku, only someone who considers himself a hero gives everything he has in a fight, so I'll ask you the same question again. Will you use all your power or will you just continue to be a hypocritical child by saying that I have arrogance when you only want to win with a part of your power? Todoroki, I won't use it, I won't use its power. Izuku, that's stupid, number 2's power is not the one you have. If it were like that, number 2 would no longer have its power, but well, since you don't want to use your power, don't use it. After Izuku said that, he activated his quirk and took away Todoroki's power. Izuku, good move. I remind you that the first move is always important in a game. After Izuku digested that, Todoroki began to run towards him to attack him, something that Izuku only saw with a serious look. Izuku, in super games you have to make the right moves at the right time, otherwise you can lose. Each hit means a piece. After saying that, Izuku dodged a fist from Todoroki which passed by his face, but Izuku counterattacked with a punch in the same place. Izuku, 1 less pawns, 7 left. After that, Izuku launched himself and swept himself on the ground, then used his hands to propel himself forward, kicking Todoroki in the stomach. Izuku 6. After Todoroki got up, he tried to kick Izuku, who only jumped back a little and then slid forward and hit Todoroki in the stomach with his fist. Then followed by a punch that went to his jaw which made Todoroki's head look up, and then he hit him in the stomach making Todoroki look down, which was received by a knee from Izuku, who had grabbed his head from above so that he could not escape the knee. Izuku 2. While saying that, Todoroki walked away while watching how blood was coming out of his nose from the knee he received, which made him angry and tried to use his quirk, but Izuku kept using his, making his action do nothing. Izuku, that won't work. After I said that, Todoroki received 2 blows to the face from Izuku, which were followed by a hook from Izuku that hit him in the ribs. Izuku, 0 pawns, 1 rook, 2 bishops, 2 knights, a queen and the king. Tell me if you want to surrender before you lose due to serious damage to your body. Todoroki just looked at him with a look of hatred. Izuku, I guess you'll keep peeling. Well, we'll continue the game. Present mic. We can't understand much of what's happening since we don't understand what young Midoriya is saying. Aizawa, he is referring to chess. For him, combat is just a game in which each hit means a piece and he is winning, and by a lot. Izuku, I'll give you one more chance. You will use all your power. Todoroki, no, I'll use his power. Izuku, well, I tried, but well, since I see that you don't have a chance, I'll give you an advantage, so taking advantage of it would be a good idea. Saying that, Izuku deactivated his quirk, giving the power back to Todoroki, who realized when he could release some ice from his hand, which made him smile. Todoroki, he will regret having done that. Izuku, one day you'll learn that a quirk isn't everything. After saying that, Izuku began to run towards Todoroki, who was attacking him with ice spikes, which were dodged by Izuku since a little ice took a while to reach his position, and it was enough time for him to dodge it without any problem. The moment he arrived in front of Todoroki, he let himself be hit by an ice spike in the arm, which drew some blood, but in exchange for that he hit Todoroki, which almost made him fall to the ground, but Izuku held him by the hand to bring him towards him and give him 2 more blows, and at the end a kick which sent him to the ground, in which before he could get up, Izuku grabbed him by the leg and began to whip him on the ground as if he were a mat. Note: think about the first Avengers movie. At the end of 3 shakes of the mat, Todoroki, Izuku dropped him while he had him in the air, and before anything else could happen, Izuku gave a spinning kick which hit Todoroki right in the mouth, who flew out of the ring. Note: ring, stadium, combat area, call it what you want. Izuku, you ran out of pieces and you only took 1 from me, checkmate. After saying that, he left his combat pose and began to walk calmly to the exit so he could return to the stands where his classmates were waiting for him. Present mic, and the winner is Izuku Midoriya, who will go to the finals. The next fight will be between Bakugo Katsuki versus Ochako Uraraka. Note: as I said, I don't know how the fights are going, so who knows if they are okay. At the end of a battle in which Bakugo won, being quite cruel to Uraraka, who was taken to the infirmary for the serious damage done by Bakugo, he was saying things about winning against the useless Izuku, and according to Izuku, he was just talking shit. Present mic. The next and final match will decide the champion. The next match will be between Izuku Midoriya, who has proven to be the star of this festival by always being victorious in all the tests, and Bakugo Katsuki, who, well, you have proven to be very strong. Yeah, that's it. While Present Mike was saying that, Bakugo and Izuku were already down in the stadium ready to fight. Present Mike, let the fight begin. Bakugo, die. Izuku, I won't even allow you to play a game with me in this life. You're just a pawn, which as king I decide if you attack, defend or die, so just die. After Bakugo launched himself with one of his explosions, thus lifting himself up a bit from the ground, he pointed one of his hands at Izuku's face to be able to make an explosion and hit him. But before he could do anything, Izuku activated his quirk, taking away Bakugo's power. And since Bakugo couldn't stop himself or have his power anymore, Izuku took the hand that was pointed at him and used the force that Bakugo was coming from to spin with him, breaking his arm and throwing him out of the stadium. Present Mike, this is incredible. The fight didn't even last a minute of a single movement. Our champion, our star won, Izuku Midoriya won. At that, the entire stadium shouted with excitement, while Bakugo was holding his hand in pain from having it broken. Izuku, I've said it before and I'll say it again, a quirk isn't everything. He said that in a low voice which only Bakugo could hear. In the end, Izuku was first place, Bakugo second, and Todoroki third. Each of them was given a medal and a hug from All Might, but the moment All Might came to Izuku and congratulated him, he just denied the hug and shook his hand, something that All Might understood, and they both welcomed each other. While that was happening, Lita was talking to her family on the phone, who was informing her about what happened to her brother. Chapter 9. After a day passed after the sports festival, we can meet everyone in the classroom where Aizawa was explaining to them about the heroes, asking him to be able to take them as students, or something like that, something that was really interesting for everyone except Izuku, who had no interest in what the heroes could teach him. After all, the only thing that could be taught to him would be combat, and it is something that he already had quite covered, and the use of his quirk, well, it was not so necessary. He already had it at a very high level, and he could use concentration almost all the time when he was in class. After all, he only had to take away the quirk from several of his classmates to train. Something quite easy for him, since his quirk did not show signs of use until someone tried to use their quirks, and since his classmates did not use them in class, he could use his quirk as much as he wanted. Although one thing he had doubts about is which quirk would win, Aizawa's or his. After all, if the two were erased, their quirk would not be erased, since one took away the power to erase the other, returning it to him, so the quirk would be a complete loop of use. Since either could remove the quirk, obviously the one who would win would be Izuku in the fight, since Aizawa has to close his eyes at one point, while Izuku does not. After Professor Aizawa was saying everything about the hero training, he showed a list of the ones that were most requested, and as he thought, Izuku was in first place, Todoroki second, Bakugo third, and as he thought just because of that thing Bakugo started jumping and getting angry about why Izuku had more than him, and why he had less than him half. Izuku, Bakugo, shut up, throwing a tantrum won't get you more requests. After saying that, he approached to see all the requests he had, but in the end only 3 seemed interesting to him. One was for a heroine, which was Mirko, a heroine that looked like a rabbit, and the other was from Gran Torino. In the end he obviously chose none, as he knew Mirko would only teach him combat and Torino possibly the same, so he didn't choose any, so he just told the teacher and left the room to be able to see what he could do in all that free time he had. While Izuku was walking through school, he was just thinking, but he came out of his thoughts when a blue-haired girl looked at him and started talking to him with great enthusiasm. Nijire, hey, what's your quirk? Izuku, here. Nijire, how powerful is it? Izuku, before. Nijire, do you have a girlfriend? Izuku. Nijire, how old are you? Izuku, when he shuts up. Nijire, what is your name? Izuku, you with. Nijire, ho, and tell me. Before Nijire could continue speaking, Izuku put a finger on his mouth. Izuku, answering your questions, Izuku called me. No, I don't have a girlfriend. My quirk is cancellation. I don't know how powerful it is, and I'm 14 years old. Now tell me, who are you? Nijire, my name is Nijire Hado. It's a pleasure. Izuku, the pleasure is mine, Nijire-senpai. Nijire, don't call me that. Izuku, Nijire-san? Nijire shook her head upon hearing that. Nijire, no, neither. Izuku, Nijire? Nijire, perfect, that's fine. Izuku, hey Izuku, have you chosen a hero to go with? Izuku, no. Nijire, if I'm not mistaken, Mirko, I'll send you an invitation. Izuku, yes. Nijire, choose the one so I can talk to you longer. After all, I am a Ryuko student, and they both work together. Izuku, I see, I'm not sure. Nijire, so what do you say? Izuku, they weren't the ones who only worked with girls. Nijire, no, well yes, but they are making an exception, so please. While Nijire was saying please, she grabbed Izuku's hands and looked at him in her eyes. Izuku, you know your charms are not effective with me. Nijire, darlings? Izuku, forget it, but okay, if I don't find someone better, I'll choose her. Nijire-senpai. Nijire, Izuku is Nijire. My Nijire-senpai and Nijire-san are Nijire. Izuku, good, bad. Nijire, okay, Izuku, how about we go get something to eat? Izuku, it's. Before Izuku could do anything, he was dragged into the cafeteria, but without either of them knowing, they were seen by 2 people who were internally laughing, and these were Nijire, Mirio, and Tamaki's best friends. Mirio, this is going to get interesting. After saying that, they watched as Nijire sat Izuku at a table, and she started talking to him. After a long conversation, Nijire began to like Izuku, since for him it was something interesting to be with her. Unlike other girls, he knew Nijire was more cheerful, or that was what it seemed, since it was always seen that she was very animated when she spoke. After more minutes passed in which Izuku got used to the speed at which Nijire went, he was fine with her, but after that Nijire's best friends approached to also meet Nijire's new friend, who greeted them normally as he did with everyone. In the end, Mirio and Tamaki introduced themselves as well as Izuku, and the 4 of them were having a quite animated conversation on Mirio and Nijire's part, and on Izuku and Tamaki's part it was calmer. After the break was over, the 3 big ones of the school went to their classrooms, but before Nijire disappeared around a corner, she ran back with Izuku and gave him some papers in her hand, something that caught his attention, but before he could ask anything, Nijire ran off in the direction of his class. When Izuku looked at the paper, he realized it was her phone, to which he just smiled because he knew she wanted to keep talking. After she smiled, he returned to his serious face and headed to his class, while in his cell phone he saved Nijire's number. When Izuku arrived at class, he looked at the heroes he could choose as teachers and chose Mirko in the end. If he wanted to spend more time with Nijire after choosing her, he left her to Professor Aizawa and went to his seat, where he received questions from who he had chosen, to which he answered with the truth, and although several were surprised, one of them upset Izuku, which was Mineta, who was only saying that he chose her because that heroine was Hexy, to which Izuku just quickly got up and kicked him in the face, which sent him flying away. Izuku, I deserved it. After Izuku digested that, he sat in his seat again and just waited for classes to end so he could go home. While that was happening in the school's office, you could see how they were organizing the letters that would be sent to the heroes who decided to train with them. Time skip. After some time passed, Izuku had already had to go to the hero agency of the heroine he chose, so he was walking down the street without any hurry since he was thinking about Nijire, and he was thinking of quick answers that he could make to answer her possible questions, but before he could continue thinking of a way to answer Nijire, he dodged an axe kick that came from above, and only after dodging it he activated his quirk and got into a battle stance, but that stance relaxed when he realized who it was. Izuku, Rabbit Hero. Mirko, why do you call me that? Izuku, that doesn't matter, the important thing is why you attacked me. Mirko, first of all, call me Mirko, kid. Second, it's because you took so long. Izuku, there has never been an arrival time. Mirko, I know, but at least come early, you don't want to make a beautiful woman like me waiting, right? Izuku, yes, whatever you say. After Izuku said that, he continued walking to the agency, but Mirko, seeing him answer like that, got angry and tried to kick him in the back, which Izuku dodged. Izuku, and that's because it's... Mirko, you're implying that I'm not beautiful. Izuki, you would have preferred me to say that you are beautiful. Mirko, yes. Izuku, well then you are, end of conversation, right? Mirko, not until you say it convincingly, so tell me. I think you're beautiful. Izuku, no, I won't say it, and the conversation will have to end because another heroine is coming who I assume is your agency partner. Mirko, just because she's here doesn't mean you can't say I'm beautiful. Izuku, because the obsession of me telling you that you are beautiful. Mirko, it's not an obsession. Izuku, then why do you want me to say it? Mirko, because yes. Izuku just stared at her blankly as he waited for his partner, better known as Ryuko, to arrive at the place. When she arrived, she just greeted Izuku and addressed her partner. Ryuko, what did you do? Izuku attacked me with a kick. Ryuko, what did you do that? Mirko, it was to see how good his reflexes were. Izuku, she said she wanted me to call her beautiful and that's why she was kicked. Ryuko, you wanted him to do that. Mirko, well, what does it matter if I wanted him to call me beautiful? Ryuko, hearing her say that, grabbed her ears and stretched them. Ryuko, you shouldn't do that. Mirko, please stop doing that. Izuku, maybe I have to help her. I feel sorry for her. You are Nijire-senpai's teacher, right? Ryuko, hearing this, released Mirko and approached him. Ryuko, yes, that's me. My hero name is Ryuko, but you can call me Ryuko. Mirko, hearing her in a low voice, said cradle robber, something that Ryuko heard which made her look angry, something that made Mirko tremble. Ryuko, you can tell me your name. Izuku likes Ryuko-san. Ryuko, with Ryuko it's good. Izuku, okay. Ryuko, how about we go to the agency? Izuku, sure. After that, Ryuko and Izuku began to walk in the direction of Ryuko and Mirko's agency, who quickly got up from the ground and began to run to catch up with Izuku and Ryuko, who already had an advantage on the way back to the agency. After a while, the three of them arrived at the agency in which they were the owners. Izuku, I have a question. Mirko, which one? Izuku, why me? Ryuko, Mirko liked you, that's the reason. Mirko, that's not true. Ryuko, but he kept talking about the green-haired boy the other time. Mirko, that was just because I liked the way he fought. Izuku, did you like it? Mirko, yes, of course, your speed is good as well as your strength, and you also have a very interesting style when using various fighting styles. Izuku, I see. Ryuko, if he kept talking about you, he actually also said that. Before Ryuko finished speaking, Mirko covered her mouth. Mirko, yes, I said that the way you could do such interesting movements in combat, but what do you think if we have a training fight? Izuku, okay. After Mirko led Izuku through the agency, arriving at a place where there was a kind of training area. Chapter 10. After Izuku spent a few days at Mirko and Ryuko's hero agency, he had gotten along pretty well with both of them. From time to time, Nijire would go to talk to him, but what he did most at the two heroines' agency was train his hand-to-hand combat, and although he could also fight with his staff, he didn't use it for two reasons. One of them was because the one he trained the most with, which was Mirko, he didn't use any weapon, and the other was that he didn't want to hurt her with his staff. After all, a hit with the metal of it was painful. Also, apart from just training with Mirko and sometimes with Ryuko or Nijire, he and Mirko went out to patrol the city to stop crimes, and all that was the most they had done was stop a few robberies, but Izuku didn't care if what they did it was little. After all, experience was experience. After a while of training with Mirko and Ryuko, they showed Izuku the way in which heroes more or less work, since although it was seen that the work of a hero was something of just going out and fighting crimes, but the reality was different. The work of heroes was something more complicated, and not only the way in which they have to face villains. There was also a part that made the work of a hero look like a common office job, and that was, although not very well known by the community, it was known, and it was one of the reasons why there have been some vigilantes, although most of them is because they only want to do justice without having any kind of restrictions, something that Izuku really understood. He believed that it was more efficient to be a vigilante than to be a hero, and what Mirko and Ryuko showed him only clarified more that thought that vigilantes are more efficient. Aside from that, Mirko had taught him how she patrolled and a type of modus operandi that she thought the villains used to attack or to do their things, something that Izuku, well, listened to, but the truth is that he only had planned to go there if one day he were to patrol alone. At this moment they were both on the roof of a house looking everywhere in case they found any criminal, but the surveillance they were doing was stopped by Izuku's cell phone, which received a message from some coordinates that were not very far away, to which he showed them to Mirko, who looked at the address more or less of the place and saw how there were things that attacked the UA facilities in order to kill All Might. Izuku, well, it seems that it is something important, so what do you think? Let's go. Mirko, sure kid, but you'll go to the exact location. I'll go for those things. Izuku, okay. After they both agreed, they both began to move across the roofs of buildings, and although Izuku did not have any kind of mobility power or anything like that, he managed with parkour movements which helped him a lot to be able to move across the roofs, and these movements were something that Mirko helped him perfect. After Izuku and Mirko arrived at the place where the attack was taking place, Izuku and Mirko took different paths, Izuku in that direction and Mirko alone went to fight the Nomus. After Izuku arrived at the location they gave him, he saw how the vigilante Stain was about to kill a hero who was saved by Izuku as he threw a rock at Stain's head. Izuku, hello hero killer. After Izuku said that, he launched himself at the hero killer with his staff already deployed so he could start a fight between a guy who used swords. Izuku, after he launched himself and got close to Stain, launched a blow with his staff which was dodged and returned by a sword slash which, like the staff, was dodged. Stain, wow, you look like you can dodge my attacks. Izuku, yeah, don't you see? After Izuku said that, he threw another blow with his staff which was again dodged. Izuku, you know, I think you had bad luck meeting me. Stain, why do you say that? You haven't even managed to land a hit on me. Izuku, don't brag, you haven't been able to either. Well, as I was saying, to use your quirk you need to lick the opponent's blood. That activates your quirk, which paralyzes them. Well, it's useful, but this quirk of yours has to have some kind of weakness. I don't know, something like after a while your opponent breaks free or something. Anyway, it's very useful, but of course, when do you know a person's quirk? Because of course you don't know my quirk, right? While Izuku was telling all that, he was throwing blow after blow with his staffs, none of which hit directly. But they did damage Stain because Izuku was using the electricity coming out of them to be able to conduct the electricity through Stain's swords, who also threw blows, but they were all dodged. Izuku, well, since you don't answer, I consider your answer as if you don't know my quirk. Anyway, what happens if there are two heroes affected by your quirk but one arrives with the power to nullify quirk? At what Izuku Stain said, he opened his eyes. Izuku, well done, you seem to have realized. Well, the answer is simple, your quirk deactivates and those who were affected by it move again, so say hello again to the student and the hero you attacked. After Izuku digested that, he activated his quirk, and like the hero like Lita who was paralyzed, they began to move. Izuku, how unlucky you are. If you had realized that someone was watching what you were going to do, you could have prevented my arrival. Saying that, Uraraka came out from one of the corners, looking quite highlighted at the scene in front of her. Stain, you may have taken my quirk away, but that doesn't mean I'm lost. It won't stop me from my crusade to kill false heroes. Izuku, hello please, there are no real heroes, no existing hero is a true one, not even All Might is a true hero, so tell me, do you plan to kill all these heroes, and then what will you do? Will you leave an unprotected city which is an easy target for villains to rule it so that the vigilantes protect it? The vigilantes are not heroes either. It is true that they are more effective in fighting crime, but they are not heroes, so tell me, what is the point of your crusade? Stain, well, Izuku, too late. After Izuku digested that, he hit Stain in the stomach with his staff that was releasing small sparks, while he also received a kick from Lita in the head. Izuku, knowing how to shout the name of an attack is great and all, but it's kind of useless if you want to do an attack without getting caught. Lita, I didn't need your help. Izuku, well then, die there. After all, you were going to do it. Tell me why you did this. Will it be because you wanted recognition, to show your strength, or will it be for revenge? Lita, oh. Izuku, I know why you did it. It's something stupid. After all, we are still students, so I really don't know why you thought you could beat him. After Izuku said that, he just looked at the entrance of the alley, since that's where Todoroki came from, and just as he arrived, he asked what happened, only to find Lita and Izuku standing next to an unconscious Stain. Izuku, well, that guy attacked that other guy, and as Lita saw him and wanted to help, but he was also hurt. Todoroki, I see. After Todoroki digested that, Izuku approached Lita and quietly said to her, Izuku, don't say anything about wanting revenge because you will be punished. Lita, but I. Izuku, just think, you don't need to be punished to learn, you just have to reflect. Hey Todoroki, do you know if the Nomas have already been arrested? Todoroki, if the heroes have defeated them. Izuku, well, who's hungry? There's a shawarma restaurant nearby. I don't really know what it is, but I'm craving it. Let's go, I'll treat you. Todoroki, we have to meet up with the other heroes. Izuku, well, the shawarma later. Just saying that, all the students left the alley, leaving a tied and unconscious Stake next to an injured hero who they completely forgot about. After they were running around there, they met several heroes to whom they told what happened, something that they did not believe because they thought that some children could not defeat the hero killer, but a heroine who was Izuku's teacher went to the address where the children said to check. When she arrived at the place and realized that what they said was true, she called the ambulance to take the hero, and then she called the police to do the same. At the end of a while, the two services arrived and the doctors took the injured hero to be able to heal his wounds, while the police took Stain to be able to put him in jail and all that. Mirko, good job, kid. Izuku, well, who wants shawarma? Todoroki, you're still doing that. Izuku, I'm hungry, master wants shawarma. Mirko, what is that? Izuku, I don't know, but there is a restaurant like that about 2 blocks away. Mirko, okay, let's go. Uraraka, I'm going too. Todoroki and Lita just sighed and started following Izuku, Uraraka and the heroine who were heading to eat at that restaurant. Todoroki, Lita, you know what shawarma is? Lita, no. After Izuku and company arrived at the shawarma restaurant, they ordered their food so they could eat. Note, at the time I knew what shawarma was, but I forgot it, so I don't know what shawarma is anymore. While Izuku and company arrived at the shawarma restaurant in an unknown location, a type of suit could be seen that had tubes connected to his body and had a burned face looking at images of Izuku. You will be the one who changes this society, whether you become a hero or a villain, but that doesn't mean I won't give you more power, my son, ha ha ha. After he digests in that dark room, the few remaining lights will turn off, leaving absolutely nothing to be seen, only a persistent and evil laugh to be heard, which continued to laugh in that darkness. While that was happening in that unknown place, in an interview of a heroine, she was making poses next to 2 girls, which were Momo Yaoyorozu from Class 1A and Kendo from Class 1B, which, like the heroine, were making poses while they were being retransmitted by a television channel which Izuku and his companions were watching in the shawarma restaurant. Uraraka, look, there is Momo. Lita, I didn't know she liked that kind of things. Izuku, he doesn't like them, it shows on his face. After saying that, Izuku put on an evil smile. Uraraka, Izuku, what do you think? Before he could finish speaking, Izuku grabbed his phone and quickly dialed a number. When he saw on TV, he could see Momo grab his phone. Momo phone, wow Momo, I didn't know you liked doing interviews and that kind of thing. Phone Izuku, what Izuku, are you looking at me? Momo phone, yes. On television you could see how Momo was nervous while she had the cell phone in her hands while she was watched by her companions. Mirko, haha kid, I love the way you are. Momo phone, well, I'll keep watching you on TV, good luck with your appearance. Phone Izuku, wait Izuku. Before Momo could finish speaking, Izuku hung up. Todoroki, why did you do that? Izuku, that's why. By saying that, he was pointing at the television where you could see a very nervous Momo who didn't even know what to do. Mirko, haha, you are cruel. Chapter 11. After some time passed, the days of the internships ended and the UA students returned to their normal codes, where as always they meet in Aizawa in his yellow sleeping bag, and while he sleeps his students are talking animatedly about what they did. The one who talked the most was Minera, who was talking about what happened in her internship with Midnight, and although he was excited telling her, according to him it was not as he expected. Note: I don't know what I put filler in for, let's get to the interesting things directly. After being in the UA for a while, this time according to Aizawa they would be to a camp, which Izuku took as something quite normal, and at this moment the entire class was on a bus heading to the camp, and although it seemed strange to them, in the middle of the road they stopped to talk to several heroes who were known as the Wild Hussycats. Note: I don't know what any of them are called, and I don't plan to look for them since they only appear for a while, so we will name them depending on their suit color. Which began to explain to them that from that place they would have to get to the camp, to which they threw them into the forest, while earth golems appeared which were attacking them, and they wondered at this moment where our protagonist is. Well, he is inside one of the trucks lying on the chairs, and they wondered how he could get there without being seen. Flashback. While they were giving explanations of what they had to do, Izuku moved behind all the students without them noticing and approached one of the buses and sneaked in through a window and lay down on one of the seats. End flashback. And that's how Izuku got to that place while his companions were fighting golems. After some time passed, Class 1A arrived where they were waiting. Upon arriving they were greeted with a very slow from the Hussycats and a good job from Izuku, while Dahlia from one of the buses that were next to the Hussycats, who were with a face of what happened here since they did not know where it appeared from. Uraraka, Izuku, where were you? I thought you were lost. Izuku, I didn't stay on the bus and I was waiting for them, so good job. Red, hey kid, you know you had to do the exercise. Hearing that, Izuku just looked at me with a bored look, and with a very sarcastic voice he said, Izuku, I really didn't realize. Which made many people have a drop of sweat, and the girl in red had an angry face, so they answered her. Izuku, well then now what are we going to do? Blue, okay, let's eat curry. Note, I would like to try it. It looks like it when you see it. Koda, I don't know why they try, they will never be heroes. Note, blah, unimportant things. While saying this he was looking at everyone, but after saying that he looked at Izuku, who was talking to Momo, who had asked him something that he had answered, which made Koda upset because they weren't paying attention to him. Koda, I really don't know how you plan to be a hero, maybe you're just someone full of arrogance who only wants to be a hero to get money and fame. Izuku, hearing him and noticing that he was looking at him, spoke. Izuku, okay. After saying that, Izuku returned to Momo, who was looking at Izuku and the boy, since the boy had an angry face. Time skip, yes I tell you. While Izuku and the others began to be attacked again by the League of Villains, the Hussycats noticed that Koda was not there, to which Izuku asked where he was, receiving the answer and running in that direction to be able to take Koda to the Hussycats. While Izuku was running in Koda's direction, he was looking from the top of a mountain where he was deep in thought. But that moment of thinking was interrupted by someone who brought back bad memories, which was the guy who killed his parents, something that scared him and made him angry since. But before either of them could say anything, Izuku arrived at the scene and stood in front of Kota, who had yelled at him that he was the guy who killed his parents, which Izuku knew more or less from what Kota's pussycats had told them, which made him look with his eyes narrowed at Muscular, who had a crazy smile, who was starting to use his quirk, wrapping himself in muscles. And that was something that Izuku only saw as stupid because of his power, since in the end everything I have tried would only be a waste of time. But as expected, the villain did not know it, and also as expected he did not notice Izuku's face that showed some boredom for his power, something that maybe if he had seen it he would have warned him that Izuku was powerful even if he did not know how, but as he did not notice it he launched an attack against Izuku and Kota. To which Izuku responded to Gaara Kota and like him jumping to the side of the road so that they would not receive an attack. After doing that, Izuku told Kota to run, which he hesitated to do since he didn't want anyone to die because of him. But Izuku brought him back to the real world by giving him a little hit on the head, and while winning at the boy. Izuku mentions that I'll be late for dinner. After that Izuku stood up and turned to look at Muscular, who began to laugh like crazy while Izuku began to activate his quirk, which began to make Muscular's quirk begin to fade, and with it all the muscle he had gathered, which looked like if a flower withered and in the end turned to dust, something that was disgusting to see since it was skin. The moment all the muscle disappeared, Izuku just smiled and launched himself against Muscular, who upon seeing what happened opened his eyes but managed to stop Izuku's blow, which was aimed at his stomach. And by doing that Izuku jumped back while Muscular attacked him with a horizontal blow with his forearm, which obviously he didn't hit but put Izuku on the defensive, since it wouldn't be so easy to defeat him if he could block his first blow, but from what he could see it wouldn't be easy for his enemy to defeat him either, since he wasn't fast enough to hit him. After all, in this fight there was more of a conflict about whether speed or power was better in an attack, brute force or skill. While Izuku and Muscular were watching to see who would make the first move in the fight that would take place there, Kota was running to get to the Hussycats to inform them about Izuku to see if they could help him. Meanwhile, with the students of Class 1A, they were fighting with different villains, who well had an advantage due to the simple fact of having more combat experience than the students. But that did not mean that they were giving up, and they were doing everything possible to help their teachers. Meanwhile, with Izuku you could see how Muscular and Izuku collided fists, and although it was very small and almost impossible to see, you could see how a small current of air came out after both fists collided. After giving that blow they both separated, and Izuku, like the previous time, jumped back and then ran around Muscular to be able to use his speed more as an advantage, while Muscular, what he was doing was just watching Izuku wherever he was going to be able to try to give a blow fast enough to hit Izuku, who at this moment had already stopped, and threw a kick at Muscular, who stopped it with his own leg and then tried to blow to Izuku's leg, which he quickly removed by turning around and then doing a somersault, and tried to kick Muscular in the chin, who only took a step back to be able to dodge the. After Izuku did the somersault he put his hands on the ground while he was in a crouching position, and then he jumped in Muscular's direction as an impulse, and then he hit Muscular's stomach, which he felt damage, but not enough to be very serious or enough to leave he stunned, so he tried to hit from above to hit Izuku in the head, which moved quickly, and like a snake he made a kind of key in which he wrapped Muscular's arm and used his own strength to attract him towards him, and with his arm he made an impulse knee Muscular in the head, who this time was stunned by the blow, so he stepped back and tried to sweep Izuku to try to throw him to the ground, which he made a small jump to dodge it, and when he touched the ground Nine tried to jump back to get away but had to put his arms in some of the pain that he got from stopping the muscle blow. Again, like the previous times, Izuku and Muscular stared at each other in order to make a decision on how to resume the fight in order to have an advantage, but at that very moment, Izuku pulled out something that Muscular was not expecting, which were his batons, which came with the suit that he was not wearing. Note, this is the magic of cinema, as it put them out of nowhere. And when he took out his sticks he made them spin and then touched one of the buttons on his stick and made small blades come out of both of them, and they began to make sparks, which made Izuku put on a sadistic smile while his eyes were covered by his hair. Izuku, this is your sentence. After saying that, Izuku launched himself with his batons against Muscular. He launched a straight blow with one of his batons, to which Muscular hit the baton on the part that did not have the spike to remove the baton and tried to leave an opening, but after that he had to take a step back since Izuku with his other baton launched a horizontal blow. And after seeing how Muscular dodged it, he followed the movement of his baton and spun on himself, trying to give a horizontal blow again, while now instead of just being one baton it was both horizontal, which did not hit, but seeing that Izuku again, following the movement of his batons, made a movement like a figure 8 horizontally to hit with his batons upwards, trying to hit, which he did not hit, which made Izuku lower the batons down, which did not hit directly but did touch something. The type of Muscular who felt the shock of electricity, which he noticed was quite strong. Seeing how Izuku made a blow which left an opening, he launched a blow which was stopped by Izuku's batons in the form of X, and after that Izuku released them, and then the staff he had in his right hand passed it to the left with a reverse grip, and respectively the same with the other staff, thus giving an X-shaped blow to Muscular with his staffs, which also conducted electricity to him, which although it is not lethal it left him somewhat paralyzed, something that Izuku used to give another blow with his staff, and another, and another, and another, which continued until Izuku thought that Muscular had already been finished, but at the moment he stopped moving and Muscular did not move, which made Izuku lower his guard a bit. He moved and gave a straight kick to Izuku in the stomach, which sent him flying, but not before Izuku had stuck his staff in Muscular's leg, which began to bleed and revived a stronger electric shock due to the electricity that was conducted throughout his body by means of his blood, which served as a conductor for the electricity, which left Muscular very paralyzed, who received an attack from Izuku's staff which he had thrown and had stuck himself on the other leg of Muscular, paralyzing him the most, to which Izuku quickly got up, hugged Muscular by the waist, and using all his strength he lifted something to Muscular and knocked him down to the ground. After that Izuku got on top of him and started hitting him in the face without stopping, and at a certain point he took his batons out of Muscular's legs and started hitting him with them until a lot of blood began to come out, and several teeth flew out, to which he stopped, but when he did you could see how Muscular's face had deformed somewhat, while it was full of blood, with a broken nose and a somewhat dislocated mouth, which made him look uglier than before. And seeing that, Izuku stood up and punched his face to make sure they were unconscious, and after that he ran away from the place to see if he could help his classmates and his teachers. Chapter 12. After Naruto finished beating Muscular, and he ran in search of his classmates to see if he could help them with something or his teachers, he met some of his friends who had already finished off the villains who were attacking them, to which together with them they ran out in search of more of their classmates. At one point in their search they came across Uraraka and Tsuyu, who were fighting a girl who was absorbing Uraraka's blood while having a perverted face, but the moment she looked at Izuku and his classmates he moved away from Uraraka while putting on a smile and sending a kiss to Izuku, who made a dodge movement, to which Toga pouted, but after that, doing acrobatics, he left the place, leaving them with faces of, "But what happened here?" After seeing that he left and seeing if Uraraka was okay, everyone started running in search of more of their classmates to see if they needed help or something like that, and if they weren't lucky enough to find one of their friends, it would be good to find one of their teachers so they could know what to do, since they weren't very clear about what to do. Although they all had an objective, to defend and defend the others, each mission had that objective. But to finish a mission they had an objective which they didn't know what theirs was, and they also didn't know what the villains were, although the most likely was to kill them. While Korean, they finally found Bakugo and Todoroki, who were fighting against a guy who could make his teeth grow, who was in the air, but the moment Izuku looked at him his ability was erased, which was taken advantage of by Todoroki and Bakugo, who hit him in similar time, first Bakugo with an explosion, and then Todoroki froze him. At the moment when Izuku and his group arrived with him, as always, you could see how Bakugo was a little angry, but he hardened the fact that they would help him so that everyone could get out of this place as best as possible and be able to find a teacher. Just at the moment when everyone was talking, Bakugo was captured by Mr. Compress, who couldn't do anything else with his power. Izuku used his power against him, although he was surprised that Bakugo didn't come out. What he sensed that anyone who had been affected by his quirk could no longer be freed unless he did it, which was crap, to which Izuku stopped using his quirk against him, and together with the others they began to chase him, while they asked Tsuyu and Uraraka to go for some teachers while they followed Mr. Compress, who after a while being chased reached a point where he was helped by his classmates, more exactly Devi, who threw blue fire at those who were chasing them, who took cover behind an ice barrier. After that Izuku jumped back after being attacked by the same girl who attacked Uraraka a few moments ago. Toga. Hello, my name is Toga. Izuku, listening to her, just looked at her without saying anything while he activated his quirk on her just in case, which she didn't notice, but still using his quirk would be useless in that situation, to which he didn't even try. But while Izuku was looking at her, he also deactivated Davi's quirk, which stopped him from being able to expel his fire, which gave his companions an advantage, but that advantage would be interrupted when Toga launched himself at Izuku to try to cut him, to which he lost concentration on Devi in order to take Toga's arm, which was pointing at him, with his knife, and then put it on his shoulder, and with a karate movement he slammed her against the ground while he walked away and again deactivated Devi's quirk, which he looked angrily at Izuku for taking away his quirk, but while he wanted to leave his quirk activated to take it from both of them, he couldn't, with Toga attacking sometimes, something that bothers him. After a while, more villains appeared with the mist, and the one who was supposed to be the leader was looking quite angrily at Izuku, since according to him it was one of the biggest problems. Izuku, seeing that, he grabbed Toga by the hand again and threw her towards the villains who arrived, and then told his companions to get away, which they did, and after doing that he activated his quirk in range mode, enough to have them all inside but not enough to use his full range, which had deactivated the power of the mist, which gave them the security that they would not leave. But the bad thing is that their companions did not have the possibility of using their quirks. After a while, looking directly at the guy with the hands who was the leader, began to speak but was interrupted after several heroes arrived, although they noticed that their quirks were erased while Izuku was in front of his companions with his two staffs on guard to be able to protect them from any attack. But the moment the heroes arrived he relaxed somewhat, but something that seemed stupid to him is that one of the heroes asked him to deactivate his quirk, something that was stupid. After all, if he deactivated it they would win by leaving, but if before that they subdued them they would have won. But after receiving an order, cursing his teachers for how stupid they were, he deactivated his quirk, which left room for All Might to try to get as quickly as possible to where his student was, who disappeared in a mist. While before the guy with the hands got to touch All Might, Izuku activated his quirk on him and Devi to be able to protect them from an attack that was very strong. After they left, and All Might screamed and Izuku called them stupid again and other things happened, everyone left the place, mostly to protect the students and see what they could do with what happened to their students. Time skip. After a few days, where the teachers and the director of the UA were discovering what happened to their students, and what happened came to light, something they did not know how it happened or who brought it to light. They secretly planned to go for Bakugo because at some point they knew of a spy in their facilities, but although they did not know it, like them, the students of Group 1A also decided to go save their partner secretly. After a while of planning it, they ended up in a place where they decided to use suits to go unnoticed, something that Izuku saw as something stupid, since at first using a costume made someone more suspicious, but he played along with his teammates. As they approached the area where the GPS that Momo had made showed, the professional heroes were preparing themselves by being around where they knew the villain's lair was. Meanwhile, in the lair you could see how Bakugo was gagged while he was tied up in an area while they tried to convince him to join them, something that he did not accept, which irritated Tamura a lot, who was scratching his neck quite quickly. But at one point everyone fell silent because at the door of the bar they heard someone loudly say that the pizza had arrived, and the moment one of the villains approached the door to open it he was sent flying into a wall after the appearance of All Might and other heroes who did their best to handle the villains, which was a success since one of the heroes used his wood quirk with which he caught all the villains. While that was happening in the distance, the group from Class 1A was watching. At one point during the whole confrontation, and when they tried to free Bakugo, a black mass came out and took everyone away, which caused another scream from All Might, who was angry because something similar happened for the second time. But the mass left all the villains in a nearby area, while the villain of the black mass, better known as All for One, left the villains, and after that he asked them to leave and then talk to Tamura. AFO, Tamura are paths separate at this moment. After he digested that, he was launched after an All Might blow, which gave the villains the signal to leave, leaving Bakugo in that place, which was rescued by his companions, who along with other heroes were experiencing the battle, while there were other heroes fighting with Nomus, who had come out of some laboratories that the villains had. In the battle of AFO versus All Might, it could be seen how All Might had a certain resentment towards AFO, since at the time it could be seen how his attacks were full of anger, which sometimes made the villain laugh so much to a point where it made All Might angrier by mentioning his teacher, who apparently he had killed while the fight was shown. Throughout the country by means of a helicopter, it could be seen how the one who had the advantage was AFO, since All Might was quite weak from the last battle they had had. The fight was a fight that was quite spectacular, even though they knew that at that moment two titans were fighting, the number one hero and the symbol of peace against the number one villain. You could see super strong air currents coming out every time their fists collided. Note, just like in the anime. After a while of battle, All Might was left almost without strength and had transformed, showing his true form to everyone, which made many people surprised. While that was happening, behind AFO was Izuku waiting for his moment to be able to help. After a while of more fighting, you could see how the Might regained strength while one of his arms transformed into its muscular form while it was covered by the power of One for All. And in this battle, All Might wanted to end his battle with the word that characterized the UA, plus Ultra. Something that AFO was going to want to stop using all his powers that he had gathered in a single attack to be able to finish off All Might, but at the moment they launched themselves, Izuku with his eyes shining with power deactivated all of AFO's quirk, which was surprised like many others that he could do that, which Izuku took advantage of to get closer to All for One and thus be able to stick his two batons in his legs with his electricity at the highest level and then turn around at that same moment and give AFO to spinning kick in the back while All Might hit him in the face with all his power, and so both screaming, All Might plus Ultra. Izuku plus Ultra. And although Izuku's attack was not as powerful as All Might's, it was noted that thanks to it, the power of All Might's blow caused AFO's head to be put in a strange position, which sent him into some rubble so strongly that he went through it and followed a rather long path. But the moment he stopped, the last words he could say were how, referring to how Izuku was able to erase his quirk if that was impossible before Eraserhead, and a quirk that could help him erase his quirk while touching his target, something he stole from a villain a long time ago. But after saying those last words, he was left unconscious while All Might completely lost his transformation and only raised his hand in a symbol of victory, while Izuku just started walking in the other direction, while the camera recorded both of them. After that, All Might said the words I say in the anime and then almost fell to the ground, only stopped by a hero who grabbed him and left the place to take All Might to a hospital, and at that the journalists began to record Izuku, who still had a green glow in his eyes which was quite visible. Journalists, boy, what is your name and your objective? Izuku, my name is Izuku Midoriya and my goal is to eliminate the darkness from this world.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.